Hey guys, welcome back to another What Would You Do About video. Today we're going to be covering the snipers, Kali and Glaz, and discussing whether they actually fit in Siege. Okay, so we're going to start with Kali. Well, actually no. Just blanket statement, let's be honest. They're cool concepts, but they don't really work. Fundamentally in Siege, gunfights are on fairly small maps, at least in the grand scheme of things compared to other games where snipers are an option. Also got the fact that your average gunfight, I believe, takes place over like 12 meters. So having sniper rifles or high zoom scopes, at least to the point like on Kali's 5x scope, is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. So I want to dive into this a bit more in depth for each character, because I think even though they are of a similar form and both struggle, as shown here on the win delta for the current season, Kali being down here less than 5%, Glaz even lower, which actually, well, I was going to say that surprises me, but it doesn't. And I'll get into that in a minute. Either way, this is an abysmal pick rate. Or presence, whatever you want to class it as. And Glaz's... In fact, Glaz's win rate is actually quite curious to me. Purely because I would have thought that people are more comfortable with the Glaz, at least in terms of getting kills, because as hard as the bolt action hits, you miss with that gun, you're screwed. Whereas at least Glaz, you can kind of spam shots, as well as also you can, it's a hybrid scope, so you can, you can fight close range if need be, which I think is actually something that people overlook on Glaz. I don't think he's as bad as what people think, because I mean his gun hits hard and his scope, I would argue, is still pretty, I don't want to say busted. When it first got changed, so it was like as soon as you look down the scope you see enemies in yellow, I thought that was busted. Now that there's like a kind of a semi cooldown type effect with it, I don't think it's as bad, especially because of how rarely he's used. But I do think something needs to be done about them, because in an ideal world, we want all characters to have some amount of utility and ability to be picked and not to be seen as like throwing or memeing, or just have some actual potential outside of just a gun. Or at least in my opinion, that's what I'd like to see. And there's this weird little cluster down here, which I'm going to be talking about a bunch of stuff over the next few videos, but I think it's something that needs to be brought to more people's attention now, or at least discussed a bit more, is the Kali and Glaz situation. So let's go over Kali first, because I think Kali's relatively simpler situation, and the issue being with Kali is, let's be honest, it's the weapon, or her general loadout. So her utility, at least in my opinion, is pretty good. Like the LV Lance, it's a pretty solid bit of kit. It seems to be good enough at doing what it's supposed to do, but it's not immensely strong, but it's a reasonable alternative to Thatcher as she was intended. I think it's a bit easier to deal with. I think there's a lot of maps where you can counter her with some very clever Kaid placements, and that kind of nullifies it completely. So it could maybe use a little tweaking, but the premise of it I think is good, and it is fine for the most part. But being locked into a bolt action sniper rifle, which has, I believe it's a 5x and I want to say a 12x scope. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. Again, the gunfights don't take place over massive distances in this game, and I don't really think it's necessary. It's very rare that a extremely zoomed in, like long range scope is gonna benefit you. And I think there's also another effect with having that kind of weapon, outside of the fact that it's a single shot bolt action. Granted, it does have the high damage and the, well, at least it used to have like like a guaranteed down mechanic, which they tweaked. So basically you have to hit the torso, I believe. Whereas obviously if you hit the head, it's a kill, which is great, but that's a lot of skill. But if you hit just like an arm or a leg, you're just going to do severe damage, which is fine. But I think that does lead to a little bit of frustration in terms of sometimes it can feel like, you know, you hit someone, maybe you can't, maybe it's just a weird angle and you can't really tell what you're shooting at, but you know you hit someone, but you can't tell where, you don't know if they're down. I think that can be a little bit frustrating. But that's also something you should probably just kind of try and get past. That's the point of the weapon, right? It's a high skill weapon. But I think the other thing that people are aware of, but it's not discussed much, at least from what I've seen, is when you play a Kali, when you have a Kali on the team, shall I say, how often, especially if the round doesn't go in your favor and you get, for the most part, squad wiped, but then your Kali is left in like a 1v1, 1v2, 1v3, whatever. But she's still outside, or she's still halfway across the map trying to hold this one tiny angle because it's the one time, at the one position where you can really utilize that scope. And there's just, it becomes a weird battle of time management. And because of how because it's the only primary she has, it forces you into a way of having to play. You know, it's very hard to want to rock up to site with a bolt action sniper rifle and expect to win any of the fights, unless you've got insane gun skill and confidence. So what do they do to help her in that department? So originally, I believe she still has, is it the CZ, the little machine pistol that Dokkaebi has? I can't think of what it's called. I think it's the CZ. But she has that. And then she used to have, I believe it was the SAS pistol, which, by the way, I'm really annoyed they got rid of. I love that pistol. And I actually thought it was a lot of fun using that pistol with her and wasn't as bad as people thought. Nevertheless, they got rid of the pistol and they gave her the SMG that Clash has. Which, don't get me wrong, it does allow her more flexibility in gunfights. It's not a bad gun. I do think it seems a bit redundant having two machine pistols. Why would you not get rid of the machine pistol that nobody likes? Or I should say very few people like. Have the now better machine pistol that 90% of people run with her, and then have the pistol in case somebody, such as myself, wants to use a semi-auto weapon. Nevertheless. So what would I do about Kali? I would give her another weapon. Just another primary weapon. I think that's all she needs. I think her gadget is fine. Claymores, and I don't even remember what her other thing is. Is it breach charge? For her secondary gadget. I think that's fine. And, you know, if need be, you know, they're constantly swapping secondary gadgets anyway, so that could always be tweaked in the future. But I would like to see her with a different primary. I do think you've got to be careful as to what you give her. One, because then she would become potentially overly picked. But also, her identity is a sniper, so short of completely reworking them, or specifically her, it's hard to justify giving her, like, an AR or an SMG, especially when she's already got a secondary SMG. I do think maybe a DMR. Give her a DMR, give her the Twitch DMR, give her even the Dokkaebi DMR. Give her something that's just, it's still sniper-ish, you know, it's still designed for a kind of a long-range fight, but not a ridiculous one. It's also not bolt action, and it's also not going to be, hopefully not immensely strong so that people just start playing her to frag out with her. I think that's the best course of action. I'm open to other ideas, but I think that's the only thing that really needs to be done, to be quite honest. I mean, you could argue that you change her gadget and like rework her so she keeps the sniper because the sniper's her identity, and then change the gadget so she's got different utility. But I think the sniper is the problem. I like the sniper. I don't want the sniper to go away. I think if you want to use it, you should have the choice for it. But she should have another option. I don't think it's... Or even make it so you can change the scope. Make it so you can have a 5 times and the 12 times if you really want a 5 and a 12 times, or make it so you can have a 1 times and a 3 times. I don't know. Do something. Maybe that's then copying too much of Glaz. I don't know, but personally, I would lead into a different primary weapon. I think that's her biggest flaw and her biggest weakness. So that being said for Kali, Glaz. What would we do about Glaz? So Glaz is a weird one because Glaz, especially over the years, Glaz has been through phases where he's really strong and highly picked, and then other times where he's just not ever apparent. You know, it's very like you see somebody pick a Glaz and you're like, I forgot he existed. Why are you playing this character? What are you doing? Why are you throwing? He's such an unusual one because one, he's been in the game from day one, which, don't get me wrong, I don't think is a reason to not rework him or him to not get adjusted and tweaked. I mean, you could argue they already did because they gave him the special scope. But Glaz's thing, his shtick, he kills people. That's it. It's another one of these characters, but he's not even particularly good at that. Because again, you're on a weapon where yes, you can put it on a close range scope, but his DMR, I mean, it's not bad, but you run it against 90% of the defender weapons, at least the ones you're typically going to see on defense, you're still at a disadvantage. I think Glaz, in a weird way, has the opposite issue to Kali in the sense that Glaz just has no team play apart from smokes, and you know he can cover a post plant situation by smoking it off, and then obviously he can still see through it because of his special scope. That's fine, but I think he needs a bit more to warrant being picked amongst a team. So I've got a couple of ideas jotted down here, and I want to know what you guys think, because I think, granted, I haven't thought on it, and I haven't thought about these for a massive amount of time, but I quite like the idea of one more than the other, but one of them does also lead me into a future video, which we'll go into more detail then. The main idea that I like is possibly giving him some kind of debuff with his scope. So like maybe he's got like a faster, more accurate marking thing. So maybe like you can ping someone and they get, I don't know, tracked for like 3 seconds, you know, or do something so that it's really hard because debuffing is such a weird thing in Siege because you've already got like quick times to kill, and anything that actively disrupts the player on the other side is quite often seen as frustrating. So I think you have to be careful with how you do it. I think I'd like to see him have the ability to mark enemies, have some kind of temporary tracking. So like in a post-plant situation, you know, he still kind of has the advantage, but it'd have to be something that you have to see them, or maybe I was gonna say maybe you have to shoot them, but I don't know how that would work. I think it could, but you'd have to have some kind of cooldown so that you can't just like spam shoot everyone and suddenly you've got pings everywhere. I'd like to see it so that maybe whilst scoped in for, I don't know, like half a second to a second, or maybe not even that, maybe literally just like an initial ping like you would like a yellow ping, but you ping that person and then for like 3 seconds you get a ping to tell you if they're moving, like if they're pushing or if they're rotating or what. I think that would give him something. It'd be a bit better. I still think it'd be on the weaker side, and you'd have to see how it would play. I think it'd be interesting to have him have some kind of debuff, something that his team can utilize alongside him. The other idea that I have, which bear with me, it's a bit out there, but what if we take IQ's ability and apply it to his scope, so he can, while scoped in, and maybe even through smokes. In fact, yeah, definitely through smokes. Maybe so it's only through smoke, so it's not just walls. I don't know. Basically, give him the ability to see other gadgets as well. Maybe he can like ping gadgets for his team, like using the smart ping system. So essentially taking IQ and combining it with Glaz, because then at least he could maybe help get things off of walls if he can see through walls, or at least if it's only smokes, or maybe it's like smokes and soft walls and he can't do it through reinforced walls. I don't know. Give him something that can bring more utility to the team. I think that's what he needs. And then obviously if you do that, then you're kind of making IQ redundant apart from her better loadout and speed. And, well, actually not secondary gadget because he's got smokes and nades, but still. But then to deal with that, I think you'd have to rework IQ, which personally I think she needs a type of rework. Like her gadget, it's cool. I personally quite like using it, but there are other characters that either do more, like do the same job and more, or are just better overall. So it's very hard to warrant bringing. Like in my head, IQ is brought when there is a pesky Valk or an Echo or a Mozzie. Basically it. Anytime there is a camera or a drone, any kind of intel gathering device that can be kind of hidden or, you know, like moved or whatever, it's basically her gimmick. Yes, she has a cool pulse interaction. Same goes for Vigil. Yes, the smart ping was a nice buff to her, but at the end of the day, if you walk up to a reinforced wall that's electrified and you need to get through it to get to sight, and you go, okay, there's bandit batteries on it, there's a Jaeger to the left, like an ADS, maybe there's a Mozzie pest on the door opposite. It's all well and good knowing it, but especially in ranked where there's either not a lot of communication or, I mean, at least with me, I feel like half the time I've got like some short-term memory loss, and the amount of times I ping a Capcan trap, I will still hit that Capcan trap. I think that'd be an interesting way to go with him, but again, it'd be a lot of work purely because you'd have to integrate it into Glaz. You'd have to make sure that it's not too strong or even still too weak. And then you'd have to rework IQ completely. But I think Glaz needs something. I'm not entirely sure what, which is why I want to open this up to you guys. Let me know down in the comments what you think. What would you like to see? How would you tweak Kali? How would you tweak Glaz? What do you think their problems are? What would you like to see done to them? And do you play them? Like, I play them on occasion, but not very often. Not only are they not as good, I don't always think they're that fun. I don't sometimes if I really feel like playing a sniper. Yeah, I don't know. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. What do you think? What do you think of my ideas? What ideas have you got? Let me know. What would you do about the snipers? Thank you again for watching. Like and subscribe as always. Really, really, really helps out the channel. I have a lot of other stuff going on. We've got a new season about to be revealed in like 2 days time, and I'll be going over, in fact it'll be like the next day after you see this video, or at least when it gets uploaded. So there'll be a new set of videos for the Asked and Answered series, which if you don't know is a series of short videos where we cover kind of new operators, balance changes, and kind of interactions between gadgets and characters and stuff like that. And it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of what my channel is based on, so go check that out. Because this isn't just a Siege channel, as much as I do enjoy Siege and I enjoy making all the content I do, I'm also currently doing a recorded Let's Play of Mass Effect for the first time. I've never played the games and I'm really enjoying it, so if you like that, go check that out. I believe in a day or two's time, I'll be doing my first playthrough of the Warhammer 40k Space Marines game, the single-player story action game thing. So apparently it's fun. I'm looking forward to it, so come check that out as well. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one. See you guys next time.